Welcome to Freddie O Live, where we are discussing topics about reachable reconciliation. Meaning, how do we learn how to have the conversations that we would not normally have in an effort to make sure that we're not bypassing the people that are right within our reach. Excited again today to have my great friend on the set, Dr. Dorrien Hinsey, who is the senior pastor of Compass Community Church here locally. Welcome, my friend.
Glad to be here, man. Thank
Good.
you.
Yes. And so if you watched the last podcast, you'll know that we are getting ready to go into part 2 of our series on Let's Do Life, right?
That's right.
Great. Now, as I did last time, I want to start off with a story, and it might take a moment, but let me just roll into this, and it should launch us into where we're going. So, there was a church that invited me to come and share with them on diversity with their leadership staff. Mm-hmm. And so, I went there, and, it was all senior leadership, senior pastor, all your people from the pulpit and everybody that works in the building, all there. And I opened up by saying, now listen, I'm not here to change anything. I'm merely here to start a conversation.
Right.
So I talked about diversity, defined it, and then said, really if you're trying to get more diverse, then you're targeting you're intentionally targeting a population. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do that, then you're going to have to change some systems, you're going to have to change some structures, and you're going to have to adjust your environment so that it's user-friendly for that new group that's going to be coming in.
Exactly.
And then, of course, I told them a little bit about reachable reconciliation. Mm-hmm. Now, prior to that, I had them email me. Mm-hmm. I said, hey, could you email me on how well you're doing as it relates to diversity? What you think you're doing well, what you think you could improve on.
Right.
So I told them, I said, hey, thank you for those of you that emailed me ahead of time. Mm-hmm. But I have one reflection. It's very interesting that all of the males responded, but none of the women sent me an email.
Wow.
And the one person of color, which was their new hire, a youth pastor, that individual didn't respond either.
Wow.
So the first thing that came out was this. One of the women, who is clearly one of the senior leaders, is on the platform in the pulpit quite often. Mm-hmm. She says, I'd like to say something, and I know this is going to shock everybody. I am so tired of not being heard every time that I'm in this space. Wow. She said, I feel like I have to repeat myself over and over. And you could see everybody in the room like, oh, snap. No, she didn't.
Yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about that. A little later, somebody else told a story. And said, I want to tell you a story. It was the annual Women's Day, and I just felt like the Lord was pressing on my heart to ask the youth pastor's wife if she would be on the platform with me for the annual Women's Day. Mm-hmm. So she said, as a result of his wife being on the platform that Sunday, there were 2 other families that showed up during service. And because she was there and they identified with her, they're now continuing to come. So she's telling this story, right? She goes, yeah, I'm so excited about having youth pastor's wife, I don't want to say names, come. And he says, I thank you for that. And so she keeps telling the story, and she said, and as a result, these families are still coming. And he says, did you tell my wife that? Right. She said, well, I haven't, but I'm going to.
Yeah.
So after she told the story, I said, you know what? I really want to thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you for the way you responded to the Lord pressing on your heart. I said, but I think there was a story that wasn't told. And that is, the youth pastor said 2 things. The first time he said, thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And the second time he said, did you tell my wife that?
Right.
I said, now I'm going out on a limb. But basically what he's saying is that I really work hard as the only person of color in this mega church, feeling like God has called me into this space, feeling like I'm in a spot where other people want to see a change and transition, to have more of a multicultural church, a multicultural audience, and engage the community in a greater capacity. And so he spends time making sure that he walks right and talks right and is included in the conversations, and he's not left out. I said, but then when he goes home, he's got a black wife who says, it's cool that you called it that, but I wasn't called it that, Right. And I'm really struggling because as a result of what you feel you're being called to, I now have to disconnect from the natural culture that we're engaged with regularly before. And it doesn't feel good. And so while I was saying that, the youth pastor, tears started coming down his eyes.
Wow.
And the senior pastor, 73-year-old guy, he looks at him and he goes, I just didn't know that. I'm so sorry. So he starts dropping a tear.
Wow.
All I'm saying is, just in my meeting with them that morning, here are two things. One, the women who are feeling like, hey, the male voice is dominant.
Yeah.
The white male voice is dominant.
Yes.
Right? Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
And two, the person of color is struggling and hiding everything within, and the senior pastor is missing on both.
Yeah.
And this is where we are, Dorrien, is that in this situation, we're finding a setting where they're doing church, but they're not doing life.
Yeah.
And it's not unique only to the church, but we find the same thing in the workplace.
Yep.
We find it in our social gatherings. We find it in settings in our neighborhoods and places that we frequent over and over, where people are okay with being nice at a distance, but nobody really wants to do life, and they're missing it. Help us, Dorrien. We ended last time on doing life. But for those individuals that say, you know what? I want to try to do that.
Yeah.
I want to go deeper with the person that I see on a regular basis. How do we begin? How do we start?
Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, that was good. I appreciate you sharing. And that probably happens to a whole lot of folk.
Yeah.
In our lifetime. So let me say first of all that this is such a big issue in our society.
Yeah.
Even bigger today, because I think actually we have actually even more so pulled into, again, our more separate, independent identities, or again, what I call our little circles.
Yeah.
These are our circles. Please leave me in my circle. Don't come into my circle, and I'm not going to come into your circle, And so as a society, it seems like we're leaning more towards that. Back in the day, we were able to go next door and borrow some sugar.
Oh, Doc.
That
doesn't happen now.
No, some milk, and in fact, my neighbor the other day asked me if I had some sugar. And I was like, shut your mouth.
Right. Please.
Going back.
Please, twice.
And I told her, I was like, Deborah, you're killing me here, girl. I said, I love it. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But those days are gone. We don't do that anymore. What's so funny, though, is that you talk about the workplace. Well, the focus is get the job done. That's the focus. And in our places, the speed of the work environment is so fast that, again, the focus and the intention is not on, hey, man, tell me about your kids.
Yeah.
Tell me about your wife or your husband. Tell me about your family, man. Hey, how are you doing really? Like, we don't really have time to do that kind of stuff.
I hear that.
And so if organizations really want to value this, they actually, from the top, need to actually slow the organization down a little bit, so that the leaders from the top, pastor or whomever the leader is, has the ability to start modeling that this is valuable in our organization, and top level leaders have the ability to do the same, and that'll just trickle right down in the organization. And a lot of what we're talking about is really top level leaders really just taking the time out to have those very personal, intimate conversations that have nothing to do with getting the job done,
right?
But has everything to do with knowing and understanding who the person is. You know how many people work for people and don't know them, man?
I know, but there's a couple of things in that, and we can't go into all of them because you know how a lot of senior leadership is wired. They're not wired relationally.
I know.
I mean, most senior leadership,
I know.
You're like, what is wrong with you? I can't say what I want to say, right? But they're just not personal people.
Yeah.
And so is the onus, and I probably know the answer to this, but is the onus for it to come top down in leadership, or is it for the individual to make their own decision that says, I value who this person is that I sit next to in the cubicle or the desk or that I, labor with, and I need to do better,
Yeah, so here's the problem though. From an organizational standpoint, you can be you can get in trouble over that. And so here I am trying to be relational to my coworker.
Right.
And boss comes on the scene and boss is like, yo, what you doing? Get the job done. So from a top level leadership standpoint, if top level leaders aren't leaning into that, more than likely the organization isn't going to lean into that. Don't forget, the end result of most organizations is the success of either money or for churches, size, people. Like, hey, we need people. We think it's salvation, but it's people. We need people in the seat, butts in the seats.
We're talking about reachable reconciliation.
Okay,
so I get what you're saying.
Okay,
but we're talking about people that are isolated. They need to have that relationship.
So let's do this. Let's lean away from the organizational perspective, because we're going to get stuck on that. Okay. Organizations from the top level leaders have to lead.
Right.
If like you said, if a top level leader is more introverted, not relational, more than likely the executive board would say, look, we need to get you a life coach who needs to help you with that because you need to be that way.
I know.
The success of your organization.
I'll get a life coach.
So we're going to leave that alone, okay? However, I think I know where you're going. You're going from the perspective of the individual. Let's move away from the organizational leader.
All right.
Let's put all of it on the individual.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that's really what it really comes down to. And I mean, if you don't like an organization that's doing it right, then quit.
Yeah.
And go to an organization that is. So let's hone in on the individual, and let's stay right there. From an individual perspective, I mean, again, we can go down the road of, I usually hear this saying, it's lonely at the top as a leader. Or even actually from a personal perspective, I think a lot of people, just from what we've seen just over this year of individuals committing suicide.
Right.
I think a lot of people are actually experiencing the whole idea of it's lonely. They're not necessarily at the top, but it's just lonely.
Wherever. Yeah, people are lonely.
And so, again, I think a lot of it has to do with just, again, all of us staying in our circles. And again, staying in the circles doesn't necessarily mean, like, I don't want to get out of my circle and come into yours. But a lot of times, because of just respect and reverence, I'm not going to come into your circle because I don't want to offend you.
Sure.
Okay? So again, the circle deal is an issue, man, because people are staying in their circles and people aren't coming into other people's circles because they don't want to offend.
Now, if I'm a person, this is how I see it sometimes, is there are people that have the majority of the relationships, the majority of the influence, the majority of the resources, and the others, right?
Yeah.
And it's the others that don't have the same benefits that those people may have. Mm-hmm. So there's more of a stronger need for them to be in relationship than them to be in relationship. Do you see what I'm saying?
Totally understand.
Yeah, and so how do we get the two to see that there's value and reward in being in relationship with one another? And maybe that's not for us to figure out, but where do we start?
Yeah, so first of all, I think you're going to have a losing battle on trying to get to two, because I think where people are going to first of all struggle is, well, what daggone group am I in, And I mean, obviously, if you're in the group with everything,
sure.
you're going to feel like, well, I don't want everyone to know that I got everything together. I don't want to be that pompous,
Right, but go back to the story I gave you.
Yes.
Very simple. Staff, church staff,
Yeah.
respectable people all across the board, and the woman in leadership says, I'm not being heard.
Yeah.
And so at some point, it's got to be of value to say, if we as a staff were in a deeper level of relationship doing life together, we would not only serve others well, but we would serve each other better.
Yeah, man. And something, if the staff was to get it together, who else do you think would get
Right,
it? The entire church.
Yeah.
Because it would be a church known as individuals who do life together.
Absolutely.
Really.
Right.
Really.
And it's not limited to the church.
Not just small
Right.
group. Small group. But they really do life together and put the different kinds of values and principles into play. Okay? So here's the deal, man. When we talk about this whole idea of doing life together, one of the things I always like to say is, well, the norm in our society is that we usually do the fluff. Like I'll say to you, man, Fred, let's get together, dude, for some coffee, man. Or, we'll say, let's get the family together, dude.
Right.
So that's the norm. Dude,
Right.
we hear that every
All the
Sunday.
time.
We hear that every day at work, in our workplaces.
Everywhere.
And so that's the norm of what I call it, the fluff. It's an easygoing, fluffy deal, and it sounds appropriate. Right?
But not going to do it.
We're never going to do it. And if we ever do it,
Yeah.
it's usually, again, just the fluff.
Right.
And a lot of times I like to call it the exchange. What can I get from you? What can you
Right.
get from me? But we're not we're not going into anything personal or intimate or
Absolutely.
anything like that. And actually, you're not really getting to know me, and I'm not really getting to know you. So I like to say, let's go against that. All right, and a lot of this is personal because, again, if your boss isn't doing it, if your pastor isn't doing it, you just can't go around life just saying I'm lonely and no one's reaching out to me and no one's doing life with me. In other words, you're innocent and everyone else in the world is guilty. And again, I know life circumstances will actually be created in people's lives that will actually put them in places like that to whereas they really struggle like that.
Absolutely.
The problem is they're going through life saying those same words over and over and over and over again. I just heard this lady at my church say the other day, she came to an event, and she said, I knew a few ladies, but then those ladies left, and, I just felt so lonely. The place was crowded. There were people everywhere.
Wow.
But she didn't know anyone, and she said she just felt so lonely. And so there are people in our society just like that, Fred. It's no one's fault. They're not bad people, but how do they move from that place of being of not using that and sort of taking the bull by the horns and saying, something, I'm tired of being lonely.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lean into some relationships. And yes, the first one and second one and third one may fail as I lean into it.
Right.
But I'm not going to, it's going to become a discipline. This is the way I'm going to live my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to always be in relationship with people. I'm going to always be doing life with people and not from a, hey, let's do coffee perspective. So here's some nuggets.
And I want, and that's why you're here, because you're the doctor and I'm the student. and so as you get ready to point, to give us a few nuggets, it is important because we don't want the trend and the pattern to continue, especially as we look at the next generation and the youth now, because we're seeing all these tragedies that are happening around the country, and it's because nobody's reaching out to someone, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So go ahead.
So here's one of the first things I always like to say, man. Let's hone in and let's say, hey, let's define the fact that, hey, I want to be in a relationship with you. Yeah. And so it's going to be a defined relationship. It's not going to be a coffee shop deal.
Right.
It's going to be a defined kind of relationship. Hey, I want to do life with you.
Yeah.
The second thing that we're going to hone in on is a schedule. Yeah. And so we're not going to do this one-time coffee deal. Hey, I want to do life with you. I want to meet up with you. That's what you're basically saying. Hey, Fred, would you be open to meeting up with me? Yeah, I feel like you're a really cool, down to earth guy, man, and feel like I can learn a lot from you, and maybe you can learn some things from me. And hey, dude, I'd like to do life with you. You know. Then so what you want to now do is you want to now lean into whether you guys are going to meet on a weekly basis, whether you're going to meet every other week, or just once a month. I have relationships where I'm doing all three of those.
Sure.
Okay. And so you just need to define. None are bad. I mean, but it really depends on your schedules. You know. And so if you're able to get once a month, hey, that's better than nothing.
That is.
That's better than nothing. But usually those are the 3 times. Anything longer than that, I think you're gonna fall off the wagon.
Sure.
You know, you're gonna miss a meeting. If you were to go every other month, that means you're gonna go pretty much a long period before you connect back with that person if they had a miss because of a scheduled meeting or something. So those are usually 3 good times that usually work out.
Yeah.
So once you have that scheduled time, now you got to get into, okay, so hey man, when are we meeting? You got that in place. Now, once you get to the meeting, hey, what are we doing, man?
Yeah. Right? What are you gonna say? Hey, you know.
Because here's the deal. You know, individuals probably may have their agenda in regards to what we're coming to talk about. Some could become, hey, man, I got some racial issues, man. You're a black guy. I'm a white guy. Hey, man, we're going to talk about some racial stuff. And so the thing I always like to say is, hey, throw all that stuff out the door.
Yeah.
Because we're not, I mean, if relationship is going to be honed in on just that, we got a problem.
Right.
Relationship is bigger than those kind of things. And there's some bigger things that we're going to get to know and learn about each other. So let's do life together. First session, you're here, you're meeting up. You're going to meet up for I go as far as saying, hey, we're going to meet for 1 hour, dude. 1 hour. That's all we're doing. That's it. We ain't gonna, because we can find ourselves having so much fun. Next thing you know, we're sitting for 3 hours. You know, and your wife will never let you back out the house.
And let me say this, you know, sidebar is I believe that there are people that actually think they're doing what they're doing, but there is an importance in listening because there's some people that think that they're doing it.
Yeah.
But they're doing all the talking.
Yes.
And they're asking all the questions, so they're draining the other individual.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what's going on in your life?
Yep.
What's happening?
Yep.
How are things in your family? How's it work? But never revealing anything about themselves.
And so usually I would call that a relationship that's not defined. Because that sounds like sort of like a disciple versus a disciple maker.
Right.
You know, or a mentor versus a mentee.
Right.
I mean, the kind of relationships we're talking about here are pretty much equal.
Sure.
We're equal. We're just guys coming and sitting down and, you know, just chatting it up.
Absolutely.
But off of chatting it up, it's going to be defined. Okay, it's going to be a defined kind of thing. So here's some other things. In the first meeting, we're going to talk about us being accountable to each other.
Yep.
We're going to talk about us being vulnerable. Like, I mean, dude, we got to learn how to share some broken stuff.
Yeah.
Or some things that we're struggling with. We also have to make some agreements on when conflict shows up, how do we walk it out?
Right.
You know?
And not walk out.
And not walk out. And not show up at the next meeting. And we got to make some agreements that we are going to be confrontational. Like we're going to confront some tough stuff that might be existing or that may come up as we talk, you know? And I got to be real with you, man. As I have done these relationships, dude, I have had to lean into all of those things.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the deal. The beauty of us doing life together means that it's all going to be done in a very appropriate, respectful, and honorable way. Because the end result is, dude, we are doing life together.
Yeah.
We've agreed to meet for 1 year. We've agreed to meet for 6 months.
Yeah.
So it ain't like I could just check out. And at the end of the day, that's rule number 1. We've got to respect each other.
Sure.
Because we're friends, you know, at the end of the day, you know.
Respect and value each other at equal levels.
At equal levels.
Yeah.
Neither is above the other. No matter in regards to race, economics, it doesn't matter, man. All that stuff is out the door.
Yeah.
Dude, at the end of the day, dude, me and you are equal.
That's right.
And if I see any evidence that you're trying to trump me on any of those areas, I'm probably going to bring it up to you and say, man, this is what I feel, dude.
Sure.
I don't feel comfortable, or, hey, this offends me.
Yeah.
Now, if we're doing life together and we're really going to be respectful and honorably to each other, well, first thing you should be able to do is understand. First, get an understanding of where I'm coming from and be able to at least respect where I'm coming from. You know?
That's right.
And if you don't,
minimize it.
If you don't, you know, and if you don't agree, that's fine. You know, but at least respect and understand where I'm coming from. You know, and you really usually have to tussle through the whole idea of, well, are you agreeing with me or not agreeing with me? You usually have to tussle through some of that kind of stuff. Is it a non-negotiable? Is it one you can pass on, or is it one that you feel like, hey, man, I think I'm stuck right here, man.
Sure.
and it's okay to be stuck. In fact, go away stuck, but agree to come back.
Right.
Because I believe that God will really give you some clarity, or at least you'll gain some clarity, until you meet for the next time. Hey, let me give some very quick nuggets. Once you are in the conversation, you want to sort of like ask the question, so how you doing really? How you doing really is basically, it's really just saying, hey, man, what's up? How you doing?
Right.
But the really part really wants you to hone in on, come on, dude. Like, don't just...
And listen when you ask that question.
And you're listening.
Because somebody will ask, hey, how you doing? And they're really not listening to what you're saying.
Because the thing that the person's doing who's listening, they're listening, but they're also thinking up clarifying questions, or they're thinking of probing questions. Why'd you think that was your response? Or why did you think you needed to do that? Or, man, was there anything else going on there while you were thinking about that, or when you did that kind of thing? So there's a job happening. There's a responsibility that you have who's listening to the individual talking. So we usually go into that. How are you doing really? Gives both individuals the ability to talk and share what's going on since the last time we met.
Yep.
And again, how are you doing really? Again, we're trying to hone in on defining moments. Moments, not just, I had to change my kid diaper. No, that ain't no defining moment. We're talking about defining moments, mountaintop experiences, that you're having. Hey, me and my boss had some conflict, and dude, it seems like every time we have conflict, it seems like they always win. Dude, that's a defining moment.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, dude, we're realizing that maybe you are a passive person that needs to learn how to be more assertive. Okay, we're going to dig into that. Okay,
it's good.
Then we go into, how are you really doing? And how are you really doing? Two different questions. How are you really doing now hones in on some agreed, identified, specific areas that we all as human beings really maybe struggle with or have challenges with. Or just things that exist within our society that I just need you to keep me accountable on.
Yeah.
So usually those are areas such as family. Those are areas such as my husband, or if you have a wife, those are areas such as my finances. Those are areas such as any kind of addictions.
Right.
Could be drugs, could be alcohol.
Sure.
Like, dude, if I'm drinking too much, like, I need to be able to say to you, yo, man, hey, I feel like I'm having too much to drink, dude, and my wife brought it to my attention, and I don't know, man. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I just feel like I need to tell you that. You should, again, what you're doing, you're using your ears, you're listening, and from that, you should be asking well, dude, do you think are you getting drunk?
Right.
Right. Are you doing some stuff once you drink, dude? Are you becoming abusive, or like what's going on? Like, we should be asking those accountability questions. Again, the relationship has already moved into some deep places, because again, these are usually the areas that no one usually digs into or has the ability to feel like, hey, I have the ability to go into his circle and lean into him in those areas.
This is how we reach together, and it's because of that transparency, right, that gives the buildup of trust, and that I am fully invested in this moment. So, when we start having those conversations and both can share very personally, then it grows. Absolutely.
You're developing a friendship.
That's right.
And I know we didn't I remember when I planted my church, man, I love a variety of races, man, doing life. That's just the guy I am.
Sure.
I grew up, man, being a very diverse kind of guy. Many times, of course, being the only black guy in the room, but
no, that's never happened.
But it was all good. The value for me was, well, Dorrien, you're going to be a kind of guy that I'm going to have a variety of friends, cultures of people, and everything. It would have been easy for me to just say, man, I'm gonna start my church, and we're going into racial reconciliation, and we're gonna focus on race, diversity, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
The problem is that that's not the focus of Kingdom of God.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a part of it, but it's not like the main focus. The main focus of Kingdom of God is expansion of the Kingdom of God.
Right.
So that became the focus. A part of that, though, became us learning diversity and learning racial reconciliation and learning how to get along and do life, from the perspective of culture.
Sure.
And so it was a part of it. The hope is that as individuals do life together,
Yeah.
they're going to touch on some of those big ones.
Sure.
But the big ones aren't the focus of doing life together. Doing life together, the focus is life together.
Absolutely.
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 And so that's how you're doing,
great,
really,
man.
how you're really doing. And then you usually close off with, hey man, hang in there, some accountability stuff. Hey,
Sure.
maybe you should check on these things. Hey, next time we meet, hey, I'll check in with you. I'll keep you in prayer over whatever it is that you're going through. And you usually close out with prayer if you're
good.
a prayer believing person.
Absolutely.
Or something,
Well, we're getting close to time.
Dude,
and so
I know, man. It's so much.
runs
Oh,
out.
my goodness.
And I like the crescendo that you gave in terms of points, and I think that that starts off one-on-one, and then we grow into letting others now see our friends, our family, right? And so the coffee shop meeting becomes dinner at the crib, right?
And so from those one-on-ones, I've experienced, hey man, let's get the wives together.
Right.
We would do dinner together. It's not now, keep in mind, because see, again, people get this thing messed up because what tends to happen is, man, we should get our families together. We should start doing life together.
Yeah.
Hold on now.
Right.
No. Because see, women got a whole different story.
Okay, we can't go there. We can't go there.
So the point is, like, don't mess that thing up.
Right.
If you're feeling led to have a relationship with a person, do that.
Right.
And again, we're talking mainly same-sex kind of relationships.
Absolutely.
But if you're feeling led to do it. But there's nothing wrong with bringing the family together, having a picnic, or going out together for dinner.
Absolutely.
But leave it as that. Don't get into some kind of rotation where, oh man, we should get the family together every week or every month or every. No. Hold on now. Let's hone in on us.
Yeah.
And over time, we'll build those relationships. Don't forget, we're not doing the Usain Bolt kind of relationship model here. We're doing the slow, driven, God-led kind of deal where we're going to take our time. We're going to persevere, and we're going to be patient.
That's great. Hey, man, it's always great sharing with you. I love the energy that we get to have when we come together. Even something that I just wanted to point out, even the posture as it relates to building relationally. I've been in many settings where somebody else's posture is more laid back and they're talking, but even as you and I are talking, we're almost it's like we're getting ready to.
We always go,
but
man.
It's not just you and I. I mean, I think there are people who genuinely care about the other individual.
I agree, man.
And their posture will reflect it.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to add that as the final nugget.
That's good stuff,
if
man.
you're really interested and you value someone else, your posture will show it, and then your mouth will lead right behind it. Thanks again for hanging out with
Enjoyed
us.
it, man.
I enjoyed it,
Loved
man.
it as always, Fred.
It was great.
Good stuff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, if you are in the area and you would like to go and visit Pastor Dr. Dorrien Hinsey's and his
You
church.
make me feel so important, man, when you call me doctor. I feel honored.
Because see, every time one of my friends get a doctor, I say we got a doctor. Because I'm not. That's too much, man. But there are people that did it. So out of relationship, we share that doctor.
Dude.
And that is on Sundays at
10:30.
10:30.
Yep.
Address is
161 Northland Boulevard.
That's
in Springdale,
Wonderful.
Ohio.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Good stuff.